Hello, fellow dudes, duderinos, and dudettes, and welcome to Uncultured Universe, the podcast where two friends show each other movies, TV, music, anything we damn well please to get each other a little more cultured. I'm your host, Justin, and with me in the uncultured hot seat is the undeniable epitome of cool and slacker awesomeness, Joe.
Ooh, my buttons are sweating in this hot seat.
It is quite hot. It's unseasonably warm, but cold at the same time. It's springtime. That's how we do it. Today we're going to be looking at the psychedelic cult classic, The Big Lebowski from 1998. Now, this is my pick. Joe had never seen this before. So, Joe, off the cuff, give me some hot takes of The
God,
Big Lebowski.
the spirit of 90s like chill wave just flows through me after watching this. Um Big
Speak on that. Speak on
Lebowski,
that.
I would say a cult film, fair to say. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We all used to, the two of us plus another group of guys used to work together. And this was a quoted movie in a way that I didn't even know it was being quoted because I had never seen it. But for some reason, the phrase "and this guy peed on it" was like huge with our group,
Huge.
and I never fully got it, but it was just funny, so I kind of went along with it. Kind of tells you something about my personality.
Anytime you
Um,
mention, piss around Joe, he just finds it hilarious. You're absolutely right. There is that really fun connection there. It mentioned in episodes past, Joe and I used to work together at a little startup called supply.com, and we built something great there, didn't we? We sure did. We were on the UX team, and our little core group of like 5, 6, sometimes 8, maybe at the biggest point.
Came and
Um,
went, fluctuated
eh,
seasons.
Seasons. This movie was a beloved classic amongst us all, except for Joe, who kind of just went along with the joke, just having a good time. I could have sworn you saw it with us one time when
I
we did a hot night, and
Yeah,
I'll explain what that is in a second. But I thought you were there, but you weren't.
it was on in the background during what might have been a poker night, or like a crunch time hot night, but I don't know if I was fully paying attention to it.
Yeah, that's. I think you're right. The hot night that we're speaking of is a thing that we used to do back in the days of hustle. Back when people gave a damn about where they worked at. Um, and we were young. We didn't know any better,
It was
honestly.
pre-pandemic. The
It was
world was different.
it was very different, kids. We stayed after for a couple hours to like bang out projects together or whatever. We ordered pizza and we threw up the Big Lebowski on the big screen in the room, and everyone was just like riffing off quotes here and there, and Joe's just sitting there with a big smile on his face, I guess,
Yeah.
because you couldn't devote the time to it. But I'm glad you were able to sit down with it now, like 6 years later.
Yeah, it's a vibes movie. I've always known like roughly what it was about, and I've always been a fan of the Coens movies. I think the late 90s, early 2000s Coens movie that really hit for me was obviously Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yes,
Like that. I mean, I am from the North Georgia mountains. That soundtrack was huge for about 5 years up there. Like you could not
sure.
escape it.
Hmm.
And so that movie was kind of the big Coens movie, and I guess also Deakins movie. If we're talking Deke here.
Yes, we are
Um,
talking big Deke energy over here. Um, we're wrapping up March and our March series collection of episodes, which is really just two. So, can you really call it a series? Can you call it a miniseries? But sure, you can. It's two. We're, f-
Airing
you know,
limited
we're
edition.
yes. Okay, we'll do that. Our limited edition episodes for March have been looking at the cinematographer patriarch, the badass of badasses, Roger Deakins, and we started the month with Joe's pick, 1917, which could not be any more different
I was
than
gonna
this.
say, like, boy, did we pick Spectrum here.
Heavy on the spectrum on the left and the right side of beautiful, heady war topics, graphic, and then to like this weird stoner mystery
Mhm.
crime scene or just crime syndicate sort of stoner movie. and they're so vastly different. But we'll get into the technical aspects of it. Uh,
Yeah, I have
the
a section
geek,
in my notes that's just called Deakins, so I've got some points.
a whole Deke section. Can't wait to dig into the Deke there. But first, yeah, before we go any further, let's just look at a quick little trailer here, just to capture the vibes. Here we go. This movie is a fever dream.
Justin,
It's
did you create a lo-fi version of what is it, Creedence Clearwater Revival?
absolutely, I did.
That's incredible.
I tried. Okay, so just real quick tangent. I was gonna do like the acoustic guitar and the slide guitar and the drum, and I was gonna do the whole thing. And I was
Perfect.
like, I
Perfect.
can't do it. But
No.
we've
Let the laziness flow through you this episode.
and I think in modern times the dude would love fucking lo-fi tracks and playlists. Like I've been super into lo-fi, like Zelda and Disney stuff, and that's what we play around the house a lot of the time throughout the day. So it just struck my brain. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to make a lo-fi "Looking Out My Back Door" by CCR, and it
I
rules.
I have like such a clear analog to the who the dude is in modern times these days, like just in pop culture, that I am so excited to talk about. Because like there's some ways that they are so alike and some ways that they are so different, but we'll get into
Great. I have a couple guesses, but we'll get there.
it.
Cool. Yeah. So this movie, directed by Joel Cohen, written by the Cohen brothers, Joel and Ethan. Of course, cinematography by Sir Roger Deakins.
Hmm.
Released March 6th, 1998. Joe, you were but 4,
That was four. Yeah.
a babe of 4.
Saw
Uh,
this in theaters 8 times.
you couldn't stop. Yeah, you're spending your allowance left and right. Starring Jeff Bridges, John Goodman, Julianne Moore, Steve Buscemi, David Huddleston, and John Turturro. Um, a budget of $15 million, and they recouped about 3 times that at the box office, 47.4 million. And that kind of goes back to the point you were saying of cult status and how that kind of flies in the face of it. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. Couple little fun facts here. Robert Duvall, Sir Anthony Hopkins, Gene Hackman, John Nicholson, and Tommy Lee Jones were all considered for the role of the Big Lebowski.
Oh, I was gonna say like the Jeff Bridges role, like no way.
No, 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 no. The Big
No,
Lebowski role.
that makes so much sense. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all older gentlemen. But a couple things like Anthony Hopkins, namely, turned it down because he's like, I don't want to play an American. Get out of here. Throw the script out the window. I don't want
I don't want to go on a plane.
that. Yeah. Charlize Theron was considered for the Bunny Lebowski role before it was given
Okay.
to Tara Reid. Um, Dynamite side character for
Yeah.
all of 30 seconds that she
She's
shows
pretty great in one scene. Yeah.
up. Hilarious. And then, lest we forget, our dearly departed Philip Seymour Hoffman was
Oh,
in this flick as well. So
he's so good
he's
at
such
playing
a
those
dork,
characters.
such a cringy nerd, but is so great. Um, yeah. So let's just go ahead and just uh, uh, lay the groundwork here. What did you think? What did you know going into this, and what were your expectations? And then what did you ultimately take away from it?
I
Rolling credits.
I think of this as a cult film. I had always known about the Big Lebowski, and in my mind, it was kind of like a Seinfeld type thing, where it's famously just like about nothing, and it's about just like not necessarily like the stoner culture of the '90s, but like maybe like a um the identity crisis of the 90s, right? So
Sure.
I knew it was kind of like about this like kind of in between period, and these people kind of caught in this period. And
Yeah.
it's a comedy, it's a Coen's film, so there's naturally going to be like some befuddled criminals in the mix. There's going to be criminal hijinks
Oh yeah.
that ultimately don't really lead anywhere. Um,
Yeah. This movie is incredibly hijinky.
yeah, yeah. So I knew that vibe. I didn't realize like how many like moments in the film that I would just genuinely laugh out loud. Like I wasn't expecting. There's a scene where uh Jeff Bridges Lebowski is listening to the porn producer taking notes on a phone call, and then the
Hmm.
porn producer like goes out of the room and he goes over to like figure out what he was writing on his notepad, and he scratches over it to trace it, and it's just like a picture of a dude with an erection.
And he's just like staring at it like, what the hell? And then he hears him coming and he like runs back and he just like, yeah, very cool. Hilarious scene. Love that.
It's yeah, I found it to be like a funny, endearing kind of almost like a clash of classes in a way. Like there's zaniness in like the weird like lower class slacker area that they are in with this like this bowling team who are just obsessed with bowling and their own little world, and
Yeah.
just like want to do that in Vietnam. And then they get caught up in these machinations of these like uber rich people who are also like equally zany and ultimately like have stupid pointless lives.
Yes.
And so they there's a lot of showing the differences between classes there, but also the same in terms of like it's the 90s, none of this makes sense.
I mean, it still plays true. Aside from like some of the technology standpoints, like you could make this movie, show this movie today, and it would still hit because there's
Mhm.
still a lot of those, like you said, like the class things and just like structure versus unstructured, slacker versus like traditional or whatever of like hardworking people, and just like upending all of that kind of stuff of just being this weird meandering story,
Yeah,
which I am very curious to see how you do with trying to succinctly in 1 minute to give a plot description because this movie is so fucking all over the place.
I'm just gonna have to do high level. Maybe I'll start at the start, skip to the end, and then just kind of try to meet in between. I don't know. Um,
That's honestly, you know what? Not a bad strategy.
okay,
Since we're in there, since we're already like in the room with it, let's just do it. Fuck it.
I'll try it.
Jo-
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a minute. Give me your best uh, uh, succinct reclamation of the Big Lebowski. 3, 2, 1, start.
All right, so Jeff Bridges plays Jeffrey Lebowski. He's kind of like a stoner slacker in California, right? His best friends are John Goodman and Steve Buscemi. They're on this like bowling team, and they just kind of like philosophically slack off and talk about bowling. Jeff Bridges kind of gets involved in this conspiracy with this like rich guy's missing wife because the rich guy has the same name as him, and so the people who supposedly kidnapped his wife attack Bridges. And so the rich guy ultimately hires Bridges to figure out like the money swap to get his wife back. But then it keeps on spiraling out of control. There's more people who are introduced. The rich guy's daughter, played by Julianne Moore, comes into play and like sleeps with Bridges to get pregnant. And it ultimately comes down to Sam Elliott kind of like laying things straight as the narrator, and Bridges, Goodman, and Buscemi get into a fight with some nihilists. Buscemi dies, and Bridges and Goodman kind of just end up back where they were.
That's you know what it's
I think I hit some stuff there.
you hit it there. Like all the whole movie takes the over the course of like a few days, right?
I got to the nihilist way too late.
The fucking nihilist.
There's like
It's
3 seconds left.
it's such a fun like 7 layer dip of a movie that things just keep getting introduced because like the beginning kind of idea of the plot of like mistaken identity, and you're like,
Hmm.
okay, this is kind of what that's going to be. I can kind of see, but then they
Which
keep throwing things left and right.
I did like that it was all. It's very much just like a an exercise in like bigger and bigger dominoes, because it all starts with like, oh, one of the thugs pees on his rug, and so that leads to him going to the rich Lebowski, the Big Lebowski titular, and asking for money for the rug. The Big Lebowski then ends up like hiring him as kind of like a nobody to figure out this like money drop off. The money drop off leads to John Goodman's character coming in with crazy conspiracy theories and plans for like stealing the money on their own. Like John Goodman in this, like it's I'm sure it's been said a million times before. This man does not have an Oscar nomination to his name. He should have an award for
He
this. Like
fucking should.
he is so incredibly good in this, and he's psychotic and like dangerous, but also endearing. And I just want to watch him the
Yeah.
entire time.
John Goodman is the embodiment of like loose cannon
Mm-hmm.
character
Mm-hmm.
throughout. Like you never know when he's going to fly off the handle, when he's going to bring up Vietnam, or when he's going to like do something incredibly violent, or and then just like immediately wheel it back around and just be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, dude." You
Yeah,
know?
someone we all know who's just like obsessed with three things to a degree that's like worrying,
Mhm.
and has like incredible mood swings, and has like the confidence of someone who can pull things off when he never really can, but he can also this movie is so much about people talking themselves out of situations that they've landed in,
Mhm.
and just like through sheer vocabulary, convincing people to do things or to take their side on things.
Yeah, this movie waxes poetic a little bit, but like you said, like it's on a very low barrier to entry slacker level of just be like, no, dude, that guy fucking pissed on your rug. You need to go get your fucking money back. Shut the fuck up, Johnny, and just go back to it. And it's so lived in, and I think part of that is, case in part due to Roger Deakins' input as cinematographer.
Hmm.
The warmth atmospheres that you get from like the home settings, the neon brownness, yellows that you get from the bowling alley. It
Everything
just
kind of looks like a porn studio. Like that's kind of like the vibe of it.
so when the porn angle throws in, you're just like, "Oh yeah, this totally fits." Fucking log jammin' is my favorite name for a fake porno ever.
Yeah, I mean, my notes on the Deacons of it all, like obviously we did this mini series so out of order in an insane way. We start with 1917, which is a movie he did in 2019, was it 2019? And so that is obviously like a front and foremost cinematography spectacle, right?
Yes,
Like
yes.
that is the big hook with that movie, is how did they do this with this camera? And so you got a lot to talk about with Deakins in that movie. We backtrack to Big Lebowski, and not only do you kind of like start to feel them like not laying the bones, but like solidifying the bones of like what a Cohen's like wacky crime caper drama comedy
Yeah.
is. Like there's
Mhm.
like a dusty feel to it. There's very much like orange and brown undertones.
Mhm.
But you also it's 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 a harder movie to talk about in terms of like the impact of the cinematography on it. But what I came down to is like this is such a movie that is like almost exclusively like conversations between like multiple zany characters, just like taking stock of what is currently happening, figure out what the next move is, and just like
Mhm.
dealing with each other in sometimes like close quarters.
Yeah.
And so I think the cinematography in there, you don't notice it as much, but I think there's like an art to it being so seamless in the way that you don't notice it. Like I bet
It
if you or I tried to like shoot a conversation scene, like we'd fuck it up immediately, you know?
Oh yeah, there's balance all throughout. There's really neat uses of like vanishing perspectives
Mhm.
that Deakins does really well, and you get that pretty easily in a bowling alley when you
Mhm.
have like rows of fluorescent lights, or you have rows of the alleys themselves that like kind of create this vanishing point. It's really
Yeah.
neat. It's really neat the way that he was able to use the space to elevate it a lot. And that's the thing that I keep coming back to when I think of this movie from a Deacon's perspective, which I forgot to turn on in my brain like 30 minutes in. Ryan was like, "And what's the point of this movie again?" Like the guy who does the camera, and I was like, "Oh fuck, you're right. I've been watching this movie for 30 minutes, just like
I
laughing my ass
know.
off, having a good time." It's like, "Oh yeah, shit."
I had like
Uh,
one note on Deakins as I was watching. I
yeah,
was like, we'll fill this in.
right, yeah. And you know what? And that is the exact attitude that the dude would 100% abide by. It's
I
just like,
wasn't worried about any of this.
yeah, it's not even a big deal, you know? I put in so little effort to this episode. Um, that's not true at all. Um, but yeah, so Roger Deakins elevated this movie to feel so welcoming and comforting. And I
Mhm,
think that is what lends itself to this movie being a cult classic. Because even though it didn't follow the traditional trajectory of, like having a modest budget and like utterly failing at the box office, and then like several years in between, and then it kind of finds its steam on home video. This didn't have that. Like it did pretty well in theaters and had modest sales and considerably grew from there. Um, I think a lot of it has to do with just like how the film feels lived in, and I think part of that is the dialogue that you already talked about. It's
mhm,
conversationy. Um, and it's the look of it. It is warm. It's lived in. It's very 90s. It's very, but like with the backdrop of like 70s music, which is straight from the dude's tape deck, that kind of stuff. But I ultimately have a hypothesis as to why this movie is considered a cult classic,
mhm,
and I think it is due in part to those two things I already mentioned, but like the stoner chill vibe of it all. Um, as well as like the disjointed pulp fiction-esque kind of storyline. It's like it's crime and compounding like consequences and stuff. And I think that really resonated with the right crowd at the time, which was college kids.
mhm.
Um, college kids love nothing more than to fucking slack off, drink, and smoke weed. And there's a lot to admire in the main character of the dude from 18 to 23-year-olds, of just being like, just let it slide off, and it's all good. So
It's
that's my hypothesis there.
yeah, no, I completely agree. I think the dude fits in perfectly in the 90s for this to be like a comedy and for him to be relatable, like cuz that kind of I mean, fits the vibe of like a specific type of like slacker film that was popular then.
Yeah.
The analog that I had for him in movies and TV today, have you ever seen Shameless?
I did watch like part of the first season, but
Okay.
yes, yes.
William H. Macy plays Frank Gallagher in
Mm,
Shameless, who's like the patriarch of the family. And it's it's a similar situation where like he will do anything to avoid work. And then he slacks off, but then like has the vocabulary and kind of the intelligence to like talk people into like why what he's doing is actually justified, and
yeah,
how like he's maybe the victim here or he's like the hero here. And I'm not sure it works as well as a comedy here, because Shameless goes to like some very dark places
yeah.
with him, maybe because it is more like in modern times and it's not like, oh, the free and easy 90s when this was set.
The free
uh
and easy 90s, like we all remember it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And like I'm speaking of the 90s as if I wasn't alive for half of it, but like yeah. um I had one more note about cinematography though. Like
Mm,
I'm glad you brought up Pulp Fiction, because I'm realizing now like that is the clear connection to an episode that we've done in the past. Like this movie feels very much like a spiritual successor to Pulp Fiction.
it really
Obviously,
does.
it's got some more like chill comedic vibes to it rather than like high intensity and violence. But it is very episodic. You're dealing with multiple characters kind of spiraling out, fractaling out. um but then from like a look perspective, I think Lebowski has like these kind of crazier and crazier scenes of like them getting deeper and deeper unwittingly into these
Yeah.
like crime proceedings, but then you always kind of come back to the bowling alley every like 15 minutes
Mm,
or so. They
yeah,
just kind of like
it's
you kind
comforting.
of like you hit a peak there with the bowling alley and then you go back in. And so the color palette does kind of change. You get these kind of like warmer colors. They're all kind of like seated. They're just kind of it's almost like it's the end of the day. Let's talk through what happened.
Hmm.
And it's under the guise of like they have to go practice with their bowling team and prepare for this tournament. But you also don't get as much of like these like action scenes in the bowling alley. It's kind of like a little oasis of its own within this story,
Yeah.
as it is in their lives, I'm sure, other than like John Goodman's character pulling a gun on someone. Um, but then the cool parts in the bowling alley from a cinematography perspective is also a character we haven't really discussed yet, which is Sam Elliott, who's kind of like a Greek chorus
Yeah.
narrator person. And I don't know if this is like fully true, but I like what the camera does with him, because whenever it shows his character, at least from what I was noting, it's always like it shows something happening with like the dude and Walter and Buscemi. What is his name? Shut the fuck up.
Donnie.
Donnie. Um, and they're just like complaining about the drama. The dude comes over to the bar, and then it just kind of like the camera like dollies over to Sam Elliott, and
Yeah.
he's just like sitting at the bar in a
Magically that
cowboy hat. And so
magically there. I love it. Yeah.
you get, because of that, like that movement of the camera, it kind of like spiritually signifies that like Sam Elliott is slightly to the left of reality here, and he is like watching this scene with us, and
Yeah.
now we're kind of like switching to him. Like, do these characters see him? I don't know. The dude kind of interacts with him at one point, and that's fun. But it's cool how you can like slightly switch up your filming style to
Hmm.
indicate like different layers of reality here.
Yeah, it's so detached.
Mhm.
But I think it obviously the movie could work without or quote unquote work without Sam Elliott's input as a character. He could just be
Mhm.
the narrator, right? But in putting him in there, he's kind of like
It's
a
like, is this
god
guy
figure.
thousands of years old? Like, what's
Yeah, like
happening
he's
here?
always been there. He's always watching. But he's just like a like you said, a weird kind of Greek chorus kind of thing. And then he breaks the fourth wall at the very end.
Yeah.
And it's so good. And it's just like, oh yes, of course he was talking to us the whole time. And he was partaking in the events with us. So
Yeah, and
is
the
he God? Is Sam Elliott God? Because that's cool.
where you get a lot more of stuff like that is in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which I think is the Coens' next movie, or maybe like a couple after. I don't know if there's anything between this and Oh Brother.
I
Um,
I think they're in the same like within, a few
it's
years
like
of each
it's like
other.
2001 or 2000 or something.
Yeah.
And so
Interestingly enough, Joe, I've never seen Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
fuck, Justin. Okay. Well, we might just have to watch that one on the
That
side.
changes everything.
That is such a fun movie, but like everything stylistically in that movie is kind of ramped up to a 10.
Mm,
And so it takes place during the Great Depression. It's about George Clooney, John Turturro, so Jesus from this movie, and Tim Blake Nelson are like runaway convicts in like the deep south of the Great Depression, but it's like a comedy. And so it's got that Coen brother like shenanigans to it, but it is
it's
based
an
off of
allegory off of, Homer's Odyssey, right?
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's like one to one with the Odyssey, and it's
amazing.
so cool, like how well the Deep South matches to like ancient Greece in that
Mhm.
way. Like there's a Cyclops character, there's like the sirens that they run into. It's very cool, and the music is incredible. The soundtrack for the movie actually won like album of the year at the Grammy Awards. Like it was that much of a hit.
Amazing.
But from a cinematography perspective, like Deakins does like some insane stuff with like sepia in that movie, and so
Mm,
everything looks like you're looking at like an old photograph.
that's cool.
It is very cool. You should
Yeah,
you should check that out.
we'll circle back and we'll do a Cohen's Deacons, combo thing, and we'll do Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And we mentioned this before, Inside Llewyn Davis is one you haven't seen,
Which I haven't seen,
but I
which
have.
also is like a crazy looking movie. Yeah,
But it also has John Goodman in it as well. So that could be interesting to come back to.
God,
Um,
Goodman's so great.
he's so good. I mean, give that guy, the shrift he needs.
It's so
Um,
good.
couple other things on like the cult status of this movie. Uh, a thing about it is this movie gains more from frequent rewatches. This
Mhm.
movie is so easily rewatchable. It's something you can just throw on. If you're working with a good group of guys and you just throw it in the background and it's on and it's just fun. Um, the dude is such like a charming character. He's an underdog through and through, and but like his demeanor and his outlook on life is something that's like honestly kind of you know uh um admirable, right? Of like I need to get what's due to me. He fights for justice and for things that are right, and but like he doesn't sweat the small stuff. I don't know. He's the dude.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like the mascot for some movement. Yes, like he is very much like the spirit of a certain vibe that people want to have.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's something I think is great. I think is fun. Don't take life too seriously, but like when someone tries to fuck you over, you get what's due and what's owed to you. Going back and kind of looking at the performances overall of the movie, Jeff Bridges is captivating, cool, effortlessly cool,
yeah,
hilarious, a loser but a cool loser.
yeah.
Like
I
he's
wonder
got.
how much of like a breakaway this was for him. Is like if he was doing mainly like dramatic stuff at the time. I don't have a lot of Bridges connections.
I don't either. I know he did, several years after this, he did Tron Legacy,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but,
I mean, he
yeah.
was in the original Tron too, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I know that he had some hesitation. I read that he had some trepidation with wanting to do this role because of like a stoner kind of thing, like glorifying smoking weed or whatever, because like he had a teenage daughter at the time and he wanted to make a good example. But she's like,
He's
"Dad,"
so good at it though.
yeah, it's like, "Dad, you're an actor. Like, it's fine." And he's like, "All right, cool." Fucking did it. John Goodman, like we already talked about, I think is the all-star of the movie for sure. Carries it through and through. Steve Buscemi is hilarious as just comedic relief of just always being not one step behind, but like 15 step behinds of any conversation he's in. A perfect background fringe character. And when he dies, it's like it's very out of left field. You don't expect that to happen
No.
from a heart attack. It's such a Cohen left something from left field that you don't expect. Like, oh, he died. Oh, but of a heart attack. Weird. Um, John Turturro's Jesus is insane, but so fucking funny. The outfit he wears is
God,
incredible.
him licking that bowling ball.
Is great. Let's see. One other little fun fact here. The when Quintana is his character's name, Jesus Quintana is introduced. There's the Spanish version of the Eagles Hotel California being
Yeah.
played, which is amazing. But like 30 minutes later in the movie, the dude is in the cab when he's trying to come home from uh he's coming home from somewhere. I can't remember. He's in the cab
Probably like the
and
porn
yeah,
producer.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And he tells the cab driver, like, dude, change it. Like I fucking hate the Eagles. And that's such a fun connection that I never really noticed before, which is great. Um let's see. Oh, and Julianne Moore is giving, and this is a thing I know you'll appreciate. She's giving like prototype Moira Rose in a sense.
I can absolutely see it. Julianne Moore loves an accent. I I loved the Julianne Moore episodes in this, and I wanted more. Like
Yeah.
if you watch Oh Brother Where Art Thou, like there's also a situation where it's kind of like, oh, one main side female character, but it's Holly Hunter, and
Mm,
she's giving kind of like a similar like heightened comedic performance. And so you see kind of like through lines with Cohen movies. Julianne Moore in this movie uh had one of the I don't know. It kind of like ramps it up in a way because you think it's like a typical caper movie, and then she comes in and literally like her men just like knock him out of nowhere. Cut to dream sequence, and then she brings just an entire dimension to this film this story that's ultimately about nothing. But she's a very interesting complication here, and she's just like very fun to look at and listen to. She's doing an insane accent, like you were
Yeah.
saying, Moira Rose. Her scene with David Thewlis, by the way,
Yeah. I know.
so funny in terms of like, again, like it just, there's such a vibe in this film of like these people need like some real stuff to do. They're all kind of just like bored and like fucking around and just finding stuff to like fill the time.
Yeah.
Even if it's like on a rich person, like high level, like let's fuck with the plebeians versus like
Let's just
let's
go
just
bowling.
talk at a bowling alley, right?
Yeah.
And so Julianne Moore comes in and she's like this like art collector who also wants to use Lebowski, but maybe establish a remote romantic connection with Lebowski. Her dad is Big Lebowski. She's bringing in more information. She's kind of like playing a bit on the femme fatale because she looks slightly insane. She's got this insane bob haircut. Uh,
Yeah, it's
their
great.
conversation goes from like 50s femme fatale to like her on the phone speaking Spanish and like immediately going into this like crazy heightened performance with her and Thulis.
Yeah, on the phone.
Um
It's so good.
I did love that. I don't know. You I guess you're kind of like seeing these characters from Lebowski's perspective and how weird and just like arch they all are. Like
Yeah.
from Philip Seymour Hoffman, who I love how Philip Seymour Hoffman, who plays like the assistant of the Big Lebowski, kind of like is down with the dude and like he calls him
The
dude the whole
dude,
time.
yeah, I know. I
They're
love it.
kind of friends toward the end of it, even though
Yeah.
he's like a little bit of like a lame cuck guy. Yeah.
100%, yeah. He's great, yeah, I love his performance so much. Everybody, like, really leans into the wacky, because this movie is so wacky. Like, like, I couldn't imagine being on set or reading the script even of just be like, "So what is this movie's about? So what is my character? I'm
Yeah.
an art collector and I'm connected to the main character in this one. What is okay? And I'm ultimately trying to get pregnant with this guy because why? And that's such another left field thing that you do not expect.
Mhm.
Like they sleep together and she's just like, "Yeah, I want a child, but I don't want you to be around."
Like she's in a whole other movie.
She is.
Um
Everyone is playing their own movie and it is great. Um uh
where
I just
where
heard the little jingle.
oh, you want
Um
to do a little cocktail moment?
Let's do this. I can only imagine and really hope that we did the same thing.
I think we did the exact same
We
thing.
did
Yeah.
the exact same thing. You have to. I thought I was gonna like church it up and do something different and be like a little clever with it. Maybe I
I
was
was a
gonna do
little
like
clever with mine.
maybe I was gonna do like a coffee foam or like a riff on vodka or swap out vodka. But no, I just went straight middle of the road and measured with my heart and did just like a straight up white Russian 2 parts vodka, 1 part Kahlua, and a splash of cream or whatever you have, whatever you can find, honestly, because that's what
Mhm.
the dude does. And,
Yeah.
a White Russian fucking rules. It's so
Just
good.
the way that he can immediately find a glass cup and a Kahlua in any given room and just like make that drink while the action is happening to the point where you don't even notice it. He's
Yeah.
always just like has a White Russian in his hands.
Mhm.
Incredible. I, of course, also did a White Russian, but let me talk to you about the way I went about this. So
Hit me with
I'm
it.
calling this a Kahlua car bomb because a running motif throughout the movie is the dude's car getting just like pummeled
Progressively worse and
more and
worse.
more
Yeah.
until it ends up completely on fire. So what this is 5 parts vodka, 3 parts Kahlua. Check me on those proportions there.
5
Um,
5 parts.
it's been a long weekend.
You couldn't
Um,
you couldn't, like, further reduce the fraction.
No, no. 2 parts cream, but I'm dropping the cream in like a shot glass. So
Okay.
that's where the car bomb comes in, and then top it up with ice and stir.
Is that a, what's on the side there? Is that a fig? What is that? A
I
date? Is that a Minjul date? A
I
date?
I was walking on the Atlanta Beltline today, and I bought several packets of Samoa Girl Scout cookies from a troop, and it just seemed like a good garnish here. So
It really is. Support your local Girl Scouts,
yeah,
folks.
Yeah, they were
It's
nice.
incredible. That's a good cookie to go with this one. A Samoa is 100% the right cookie for
Mhm.
this beveragino.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
couple other things, and we can start wrapping up here. Let's talk about the soundtrack for a second. The soundtrack is great. It is, 70s stoner energy. It's like a look straight inside the dude's head or his tape deck
Mhm.
or his house or his little Walkman or whatever. Um, I forgot the name of the term, but there's a filmographic term or whatever. The music that's heard throughout the film as like the soundtrack is also heard in scenes throughout.
It's, so diegetic
Diegetic,
music
that's it.
is,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like, in the scene, and then non-diegetic is, like, a soundtrack or a score. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So this is diegetic in that sense, where like the the song that's playing over the credits, you hear it later in someone's car, right?
Uh-huh.
Or it's on his Walkman or something like that. Super cool. Love it. Has a great feel to it. Like in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was kind of of a resurgence musically to kind of go back and appreciate music from, 2 decades prior to the 70s. A lot of bands came out and started doing that kind of style thing. Um, I think this played a big part in that, or was just riding the wave. Um, a couple other fun facts here. The character of the dude was inspired by real people that the Coens knew. It's like an
Mhm.
amalgamation of real people. There was a person that they knew who referred to himself as the dude,
I
drank White
imagine
Russians exclusively.
yeah.
Like, that's such a specific person, you have to, like, honor it in film if you're gonna do that.
Yeah, you could see this type of character popping up in, like, Hollywood or wherever they do their business.
Yeah, or just, like, a person you know, you know?
Mm.
And even, like, really specific things like they knew a Vietnam vet, who had a rug in their house that really, tied the room together. Like, which
Mhm.
so funny. And then, finding an 8th grader's homework in their impounded vehicle is such a fun, like, thread to pull to be like, "I'm gonna write a whole scene with that."
The
Um,
whole 8th grader sequence is so fun, like, they
off the wall.
do we ever figure out if the 8th grader actually stole the money? Like,
They never
so
pulled
he
on that thread, I don't think.
yeah, they have the money in a briefcase. There may or may not actually be money in the briefcase. They don't really find out because the Big Lebowski's actually broke this whole time.
Yeah.
The briefcase gets stolen from his car. They trace it to an 8th grader's home because of his homework. John Goodman does like the scariest little sit down interview with this 8th grader while his mom is just like in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And then there's like a whole sequence where they talk about the show Branded. Like, is that a real show?
I think it was. I think it was. But, yeah,
the
like, the writer of the show is the dude in the iron lung
the
and the
kid's dad, who's in an iron lung, wrote for the show, and you can tell that John Goodman is kind of excited because he's a fan of the show Branded.
it's such a choice, and it is, and I'm so glad you brought this up at the top of, like, this feels, uh, uh, like Seinfeld, this feels like Larry David, because it is, of just, like,
Yeah.
it's such nuanced story writing and storytelling and nuanced performance, like, it just feels like that, like, it has to.
No, I
Um,
mean Seinfeld, Curb Your Enthusiasm is such like the comparison here because it feels like we are telling a complicated story that is ultimately about like the little like threads within just like regular day-to-day life, the little annoyances, the little stupid shit.
yeah, it's great. One more further thing on the 8th grader Larry, that whole scene. In the, like, the censored on-air version of the movie, like, when they show it on Comedy Central or whatever, the
How?
the things that John Goodman said, his line is, "This is what happens when you find a stranger in the Alps." You see
Because
what
he's
happens,
being
Larry?
like a stranger in the
You
ass.
see what happens, Larry? You see what happens when
I
you fucking
forgot he says that like 20 times.
at the top of his lungs at night on like a suburban street. Hilarious.
God, Goodman's line readings. I just want to look down a list of them. There, I wrote down like one or two. Like Smokey, this is not Nam. This is bowling. There are rules. Right before he pulls out a gun.
And I'm realizing like a lot of my favorite quotes from this movie that I wrote down are John Goodman's. So there's that one. You see what happens, Larry.
Yeah.
When they're talking about the nihilists coming into the dude's apartment, he's like, "Hey, say what you want about the tenets of National Socialism, dude. At least it's a fucking ethos." Like,
Like the second they get out of the bowling alley, he's kind of like nice and protective of Donnie. Like when they confront the nihilists, who are total side characters here, we don't even have to get into them. But like these nihilists come, and he's like, Donnie, they're nihilists, they're cowards. Don't worry about them. And
yeah,
they have like swords.
I know. That fight is such a good fight. Let's see the whole thing about uh, um, John Goodman's character being Jewish,
Hmm.
but like not really because it's his ex-wife that he converted for in the beginning, and the whole thing like he doesn't roll on Shabbos. Um, Fucking hilarious. I love that. And like you already mentioned, and this guy peed on it is such a great like throwaway thing to pepper into your conversations. If you ever find yourself in a social setting and you're trying to disengage from one group and engage another one,
Hmm.
you kind of skirt along the outsides and you kind of listen, you nod along, and you wait for the punchline of someone to kind of say the end of their story, and then you throw in, and this guy peed on it. Guaranteed laugh. You're in. Try it today at your next family function.
Yeah.
Guaranteed for a laugh. Um,
Instagram message us how that goes.
yes, I want to know. Or do it live. Like slide your phone in your pocket and hit live and tag us. That'd be great. A
Yeah.
couple other fun facts here. A lot of the dude's clothes and shoes were actually Jeff Bridges' own clothing, which I hope he dresses like that all the time.
That's cool.
Even though he is on this bowling league with John Goodman and Steve Buscemi, you never actually see the dude bowl. You never see him throw a ball, which
Yep.
is great and interesting.
Makes
Here's a
sense.
here's a great connection to 1917. The final scene is a 2.5 minute single take, culminating with that real strike that happens
I
from a
did
pro
think of
bowler.
that. I
Yeah.
was like, how many, because like that's so intentional that they're kind of like getting a little cocky there. I was like, how many takes did that actually take of Sam Elliott doing his monologue and then someone has to roll a strike? Like,
I don't know how many takes it was, but it was a professional bowler, so chances are like minimal shots.
where was 1998 CGI where Cohen was maybe like, we'll knock the other pin down in post?
I don't know. I read somewhere that the Coens, at least in their earlier career, like in the 90s and early 2000s, weren't big on reshoots or
Oh,
multiple takes. They're
I
just
I believe
vibes,
it.
just vibes, you know.
I fully believe that this film was like like minimal CGI input, very much like in the moment filming.
Mhm.
Everyone is just vibing out on this set.
Absolutely, yeah. Minimal effort, that kind of thing, and it fits the vibe of the movie, right? One last thing here, and we'll jump out to the end games. Circling back to the Roger Deakins, Sir Roger Deakins of it all,
Hmm.
the big Deke energy that we're talking about.
Our
Uh,
miniseries namesake.
absolutely. King Deke. Um, some of the shots throughout the movie that are iconic, I think, obviously is the fun POV bowling ball
Yep.
shot, the revolving one. Um, the camera was mounted to like a spit, like where you get like chickens dizzy in the rotisserie kind of
That's
thing.
fun.
And someone was manually cranking it as they like advanced the camera down the lane. Like so
That's
minimal
so
effort,
fun.
right? But that's such a cool shot, right? Um, a lot of low tech kind of stuff mentality for the shots. The tracking shot, like in one of the dream sequences, when he's dancing with Julianne Moore, dressed with the Viking and the girls with the hats and stuff, and he's going down the lane, and
Hmm.
there's the shot like going between the girls' legs, like it was just like a metal pole with the camera, and some guy was just like pushing it, like Roger Deakins, or at least early Roger Deakins, was like the king of low tech and low effort of just like, hey, we'll get the shot somehow. Don't worry about it.
I mean, we talked about it with 1917 too. Is like there's like definite like more CGI elements in 1917, but there's also the vibe of like maybe he just grabbed a fucking metal pole on the set and was like, let's do it with this. Let's figure out how we can like make this camera fit into this position at this time and work around these elements of the scene. Like
Yeah.
let's just like let's hammer and nail this. Let's figure it out.
Yeah, like I admire that Roger Deakins does not over engineer or like seemingly sweats the small stuff. In that way, he's like the dude. And he was the perfect cinematographer for this film of just being like, yeah, we'll get the
Whoa.
shot, guys. We'll get the shot, you guys. Like, don't even worry about it.
Do we just land on like our big thesis for this miniseries?
We got a right to access Hollywood right now.
Oh my god. I'm wondering if the SEO on Deakins is going to go up just because of these episodes and we're going to get a letter. Either a fan letter or a cease and
Fingers
desist,
crossed.
and I would accept either.
Either one, yeah. And we're gonna fucking frame it, and it's gonna be great. A couple other shots. The tumbleweed opening shot is such a choice.
Mhm.
There, like you think the tumbleweed is Sam Elliott talking, maybe, or
Wouldn't be
maybe that's just
surprised if
wouldn't be
they made that
surprised,
choice.
right? And then like the iconic shot of the dude looking at himself in the Time magazine mirrored thing is such a neat,
Yep.
fun little tasty choice there.
Very cool.
Um, and last thing here, Joe, guess how many times the word dude is uttered throughout this movie? How many times?
87.
Close, a little higher.
97.
It's 160. Never mind. I didn't mean to say close.
Okay, well,
160
that's like
times,
twice as many.
twice as many, pretty much. They say dude 160 times. Super cool. Really fun. Joe, give me some last thoughts here on the Big Lebowski. Are you gonna watch it
I
again? Do you think you'll watch it again?
Yeah, it's in the rotation. I really want to watch Oh Brother Where Art Thou
Mm,
after this. Let
me
me
too.
kind of like make this a Cohen's Deakins thing. I also laughed out loud when they were quoting uh Lennon, and Donnie in the background thinks they're talking about John Lennon the
I'm
entire
the walrus.
time, and so he's like keeps on saying "I am the walrus" um until Walter explodes on him. So funny, so funny.
B.I. Lennon.
Yeah.
So fucking
Um,
good.
Character Walter so good. Just living in this in between world. Can't get over Nam. With yellow shades. I love it.
It's so good.
Um, I had a good time. I honestly I did not take a lot of notes on this movie because I thought that was like the spirit of the movie. Let's just let it wash over me.
And it's such a fun thing, and I'm glad that like you now have completed the circle. You've completed the circuit of like, oh, now I get where that came from, or now you have an air of the his duderness.
Yeah,
You know,
folks don't realize this is like 5 or 6 years in the making of me just like beginning this Big Lebowski journey.
it really is. There's a fun photo, and I need to dig it up. Um, you missed it, I think. You were out of town for this specific Halloween at supply.com, where our department did a
Mhm.
group costume as characters from The Big Lebowski.
Who are you?
I was the head nihilist. I was in head to toe all black. I had a black hoodie with my hood up, and I had like white stripes on my pants and all that kind of stuff. And I have this is really weird. I have a stuffed raccoon toy that I had from when I was a kid that has
Oh
like a
my god, the marmoset.
the marmot, yeah, and I had that, and I was, our friend Matt was Sam Elliott, our friend Carrie was the dude, fucking hilarious.
God, it's all coming together for me now.
Yeah, it was so much fun. I'm glad you had fun with this movie. It is infinitely rewatchable and quotable. And like I said, the value that you get from this movie, the entertainment value, compounds upon each subsequent rewatch. So highly recommend.
Yeah.
Um,
I think we also just like cannot restate how big of fans of Deakins we are. So fun to talk about.
yeah, right. Like you look at epics like 1917, where it's just like, oh shit, yeah, like this is a modern work of art, a technical prowess, that kind of stuff. He let his deke hang on that movie big time. It was incredible. This one is more of a subtle approach, right? This is more of the gray sweatpants approach of like you don't realize you appreciate it until later of just like, oh shit, that's why that movie feels so comfortable and lived in,
Hmm.
or flows seamlessly, or it has really neat, unique shots and things like that.
God,
Um,
it really just comes down to who's behind the camera.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Like, in the hands of anybody else, it would not be the same. It could not be the same. Um,
Movies, man.
Movies fucking dude, you get it.
It's what we're here to talk about.
So we're gonna transition here to Endgame. Like dude, as the dude probably would appreciate, I did not have a song
I love
or
it.
to do to it. So because we're just gonna jump right into the game and we're gonna play this little game I'm calling Joe. Who's the dude?
Fuck yeah.
Um, so Joe,
For
the
listeners at home, Justin just pulled up a single image of Lebowski with the text "Who's the dude,"
this is gonna
and
be
that's
great.
what we're looking at.
That's what we're looking at. So what we're doing, Joe, and we're gonna throw this up on Instagram because I made a fucking slideshow,
Oh
Joe.
my god, it's like work.
It's like work. Welcome back. You cannot escape. This is hell. Um, the whole movie premise stems on mistaken identity or two people with the same name.
Hmm.
So what I have done I've dug through Hollywood. I've dug through fame at large and found people with the same name throughout entertainment history. And
Okay.
so I'm going to ask you a question. You tell me who I'm talking about. Okay, you
So
get it?
wait, so like the answer will be,
One or the other. So
do I
here's
have to tell
question
you
one.
like which one, or do I just tell you the name?
You tell me which one, and we'll get it from the first question here.
Okay.
So question one, here we have Michael Jordan and Michael B. Jordan.
I got you. I got you. Okay.
Who of these two men is associated with the infamous meme, fuck them kids?
I'm gonna guess Michael Jordan, basketball guy.
You'd be correct, Joe. It is Michael Jordan.
Love it.
It was from he did not actually say that. It was from a viral YouTube video
Uh-huh.
where he had a bunch of like inner city kids or something like that, and they're like, if he can't sink three shots in a row or something like that from the throw line or from the 3-point line or whatever, if he can't sink three, everybody in the stadium gets free Air Jordans. He sunk three. Nobody went home with Jordans.
What
So
an
someone,
asshole!
what an asshole! Someone watched the video and said, "I'm gonna make a meme and it's just gonna say fuck them kids." Hilarious, Michael Jordan, fucking
Wow.
legend. All right, question two. We have Jackie Gleason and Jack Gleason,
Oh my
uh,
god.
actors of the sort. Which actor famously gave up acting because they found acting less enjoyable than when they started?
I'm gonna say Jack Gleason of Game of Thrones because he probably got more hate mail than anyone has ever gotten in the last 20 years.
You would be absolutely correct. Jack Gleason quit acting because he's like, you know what, it's just not for me. But we all
Yeah.
know it was because he was a shit Joffrey from Game of Thrones, and nobody liked him.
He was an excellent Joffrey, but no one liked the character.
That's right. Um, question three, we have Gene Simmons and Gene Simmons. We have Gene Simmons from Kiss and Gene Simmons, the actress, who sought professional help for their alcohol addiction in 1986.
This almost feels like a trick question, but I'm gonna say Gene Simmons from Kiss.
Joe, you'd be wrong.
Oh, it was a
Yeah,
trick
it was a
question.
trick question. Gene Simmons actually has not partaken in alcohol, drugs, or anything of the sort throughout his career.
Good for Gene Simmons.
Good for him, you know?
He seems
Uh,
like a good guy.
he made a promise to his mom.
I
Um,
should not have assumed.
next question, we have Katy Perry and Kate Hudson. Katy Perry born Catherine Hudson. Fun fact.
Sure.
Um, who of these two is a natural blonde?
Um, I guess Kate Hudson of Goldie Hawn because Goldie Hawn is also blonde.
You'd be
Shit.
incorrect. Katy Perry is a natural blonde.
What is other Kate Hudson?
Brunette.
No
She's a brunette.
way. No
100%.
way.
She's a brunette, dude.
Send me the sources on that one. I'm sorry.
The internet, dude. Just a simple lookup. Next question here. We have David Bowie, or otherwise known as he was born David Jones, and Davy Jones, the singer from the Monkees.
You should have put a third here. That's like Bill Nye in Pirates of the Caribbean.
I thought about it. That's pretty funny, actually. Which famous British musician had a cameo appearance on SpongeBob SquarePants?
Oh, this is absolutely David Bowie. I know this because like he turned down appearances on other shows, but he loved SpongeBob, and so he was on SpongeBob.
You said David Bowie?
David Bowie, yeah.
You're wrong. It's
Oh,
actually
you're going
Davy
to
Jones.
hell, Justin.
He actually played himself on SpongeBob because it's a fun play on his name of Davy Jones Locker. Fun
I
little
should
thing
have
there.
gotten that.
You should have gotten that.
I'm googling David Bowie SpongeBob right now because I
Okay.
am 100% sure that
You
he
can, we
is
can
on
circle back.
SpongeBob.
We can circle back to it. Next, Joe, a little fun thing to episode one with the
Absolutely is.
God damn it. Okay, I'll give you a point there.
Sorry. Keep going.
Oh, hold on.
Shakespeare.
Hold on. David Bowie was in an episode of SpongeBob SquarePants.
Yeah. Google it.
Wow, Buck.
He plays one of like the kings of Atlantis or whatever.
Amazing. Egg on my face. You can still get a point there. You've only missed two. You've missed two.
Hey, this is a podcast about us learning about culture, so we all learn a little bit.
Amazing. Yeah, I should have looked that up. Next we have Anne Hathaway from Devil Wears Prada, and Anne Hathaway, William Shakespeare's wife.
Uh-huh.
Amazing. Of these two ladies, who has a connection to Dame Judi Dench?
I mean, they could both have a connection. I mean, Anne Hathaway and Judi Dench are both actors. Anne Hathaway and Judi Dench are both British. Like, what are we talking about? A connection here?
Who's got a stronger connection, Joe?
I hate you.
You got to validate it. I guess you got to draw the connection there.
Okay. You want me to validate? Nothing springs to mind in terms of like Anne Hathaway, the actress, and Judi Dench, the actress. Don't quote me on that one, but like, I'm going to say Shakespeare Anne Hathaway has the stronger connection to Judi Dench.
That would be correct.
I'm picking up what you're putting down here.
Yeah, Dame Judi Dench portrayed Anne Hathaway in the film from 2018, All Is True,
Oh,
with Kenneth Branagh playing William Shakespeare.
were they were they married?
Yeah, they were
Like,
married. William Shakespeare and Anne Hathaway married.
Wow.
Famously married. I don't know famously. I just looked it up. Next, we have Taylor Lautner and Taylor Lautner. Taylor Lautner from Twilight fame, and he famously married another person named Taylor.
It's two Taylors, yeah.
A tale of two Taylors. Of these two, who has more Instagram followers, Joe?
Justin, what are we doing here right now? Like, what is this? I'm gonna say Taylor Lautner of Twilight fame.
You'd be correct. He has 13 million followers, while his wife has 1.3 million. Nothing to sneeze at.
It's not bad, girl.
Not bad. But hilarious. Last one here, Joe. This is the last one. You've done pretty good so far. You've only missed two. We have Archduke Franz Ferdinand and the band from the early aughts, Franz Ferdinand.
I want to know what you had to Google to come up with these
Images?
questions.
Oh, it took some research this morning.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. Joe, of these two, Archduke Franz Ferdinand and Franz Ferdinand, the band, who essentially started World War One?
My answer to that is Franz Ferdinand, and I will not specify further. I'll go with
It's Franz Ferdinand, correct? Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Archduke Franz Ferdinand, his assassination essentially was the catalyst that started World War One.
Tying it back to 1917, full circle.
Absolutely, I had to end it that way with a lob. That was fun. That was Who's the Dude? A little slideshow presentation. I'll throw that on the Instagram.
That's very fun, Justin.
Very fun. Great. So, Joe, last thoughts on the dude, his duderness, and the Big Lebowski.
No thoughts. I want to take a nap.
Great. I know you got to get back to work because the fun don't stop at Joe's house on the weekend.
No,
9 to 5, 40 hours. Never heard it.
Good times with Lebowski. I'm glad I am like completing this puzzle piece. I love the structure of this podcast because it really does let me like fill in the gaps in a lot of these like folks' filmographies that I just wouldn't have the energy to do on a normal day, you know?
Mhm.
Like I would want to watch Big Lebowski. I just like I'd rather just like watch a 20-minute episode of
Bob's
comedy
Burgers.
TV or something like
Yeah.
that, Bob's Burgers. And so this pushing me to watch these actual movies really is like building my cultural foundation in a way.
That's what this podcast is all about. We didn't know it the first year, but here we are 2 years in and, like, that's what we're discovering about ourselves, you know?
Yeah.
Super great. I love this movie. It's so fun. It's fucking hilarious. It's endlessly quotable. Another memory that I have from the work Halloween that you missed is our friend Matt, who portrayed Sam Elliott's character. He had
Uh-huh.
trouble all day with his fake mustache and the spirit gum sticking to his upper lip. All day he was messing with his mustache, just trying to drink coffee and all that, while he had his cowboy hat and his blue shirt and his uh,
Matt, who
leather
like
vest.
famously has a thick mustache. I wonder if it was like a mustache on a mustache situation.
Either that or it was just like sweaty upper lip. He couldn't hang and do it. He shaved it too close to the
S-
skin and
Sweaty guy.
sweaty
Wow.
guy, famously, yeah, Matt Hobbs, famous of, at Puppy Songs on
Check
TikTok
him
and
out.
Instagram, check them out.
Make him follow.
We're friends with cool viral people, you know, we got some clout, no big
Yeah.
deal. Cool, so we're wrapping up this series, we're going into April. As mentioned on the last episode, Joe is fucking off for the month of April, and he will not be here for 4 weeks in a row.
I am
Um
literally out of the country for a portion of April.
So Joe won't be around for the next month's miniseries, which we haven't like really narrowed down yet. I think it's going to be just kind of like a free for all, but we're going to try new things. We're bringing back fan favorite Ryan, my partner, and we're going to do something different this time. We're going to look at different types of media. We're going to look at books this time, as it also kind of intersects with movies. We're going to do um, Marley and Me. I'm not ready for it. I don't think my heart is ready for it. I've never seen the movie and I've never read the book.
Oh
Um,
God.
but Ryan owns the book, and you should see this thing. We'll take a picture of it. It is worn. She reads it. She's read it so many times. A lot of times when we would used to like hop on a plane and go to Orlando for the weekend or something like that, that's her plane uh, read. She could finish it on the ride over. Incredible. I'm going to read the book too, and then we're going to watch the movie and kind of compare, contrast book versus movie, which will be great. And then we'll probably do something else, or maybe we'll pull something from the vault and throw it up there
Ooh.
to kind of round it out. Or maybe we won't. Maybe we'll just say fuck it and we'll wait for Joe to get back, because what I want to do when Joe gets back in May, we're going to further explore the space, right? Let's do a Bob's Burgers episode.
I'm very excited for that.
And we'll explore what that looks like. Maybe it's 2 episodes. Maybe we do 2 Bob's Burgers in the month of May. It's
Yeah,
Bob's May.
I'll probably give you a few to stew on.
Yeah,
There, yeah.
so we'll come back to that. So a lot of fun, exciting, different things happening in the couple weeks. I think I've kind of cracked on how we can do music, and talk about that without getting fucking shafted on YouTube and all that. But we'll be all right. No big deal. Anyway, catch us out, on all the social channels at Uncultured Universe on Instagram, TikTok, and the like, and wherever you get your pods casted at. Check us out there. And we'll catch you around the block. The dude abides.
Bye.